with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, May 26, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, the executive editor of the American Prospect, David Dayen, will be joining us to talk about the debt ceiling and maybe other sundry week in the news events. Also on the program today, making a return after months and months, not on the show. I had trouble reaching him. David Feldman. In other words, two Davids today. Meanwhile, debt ceiling negotiations, which are supposedly not about the debt ceiling and not negotiations, continue. Trump Mar-a-Lago workers allegedly did a dry run of hiding stolen documents from the FBI. Supreme Court eviscerates the Clean Water Act, removing federal wetland protections from half of all U.S. wetlands. And it makes sense if you pretend adjacent doesn't have a definition. Republican lawmakers in Texas call for the impeachment of an apparently corrupt AG Ken Paxton. Who knew?
Shocker.
Oath Keepers leader gets 18-year sentence for the January 6th attack on the Capitol. That Florida woman who got the Amanda Gorman's poem banned in elementary schools, the poem that was read at the inauguration of the president, well, she's issued an apology for all of her social media posts promoting the protocols of the elders of Zion. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, after a great session in the Minnesota State House, vetoes a bill to ensure minimum wage for gig workers working for Uber and Lyft.
Coward.
North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum about to enter the Republican presidential race. Matt?
Sure.
CPAC treasurer accuses Matt Schlapp of financial and personal mismanagement.
We knew the personal part, I think.
I think it was financial. Yeah, maybe.
A little bit.
Meanwhile, an Illinois Attorney General report. Catholic Church, this is a rumor alert. The Catholic Church clergy molested at least 2,000 children between 1950 and 2019. And that's in Illinois alone.
Jesus.
All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Casual Friday. Here, of course, Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm casual. I'm
Yes.
cash.
There is a little bit of pep in my step I think people are picking up on, probably. That, of course, is because the Celtics did so well last night.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's pretty exciting for me because I have been trying to get Saul to do after school. Well, first of all, it was the first time Saul and I ever watched a game. Well, we've watched games together, but this is the first time he was like super into it.
Yeah. Didn't you take him to the Barclays Center?
Yes, at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And so now it's a callback. We saw, I think, an exhibition game against the Nets.
Nice.
Or maybe it was just an early game. I can't remember. But
I
it was
think you
very
saw a full game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And And now, it's a callback for him. And it's pretty awesome because, it's the first time we've high-fived during a sporting event.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. So,
That's key to cementing kids' love of sports is like when the team is good. That helps. That helps.
very
Yeah,
fun.
that's why I was a Michael Jordan fan.
But let's get into this. I will say that this is not, in some day, like as much as I enjoy high-fiving with Saul, what I really want him to come back with is hearing the news of what the Supreme Court did the day before and ask me if the Chevron doctrine was still intact. That's where I'm hoping things go. This is a clip of Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokesperson, responding to the 5-4 decision at the Supreme Court about the EPA Clean Water Act. And to be clear, just so you know, there's the underlying case, the actual case at hand, which was about a family, I think in Ohio, maybe it was. I can't remember.
The Sacketts?
The Sacketts. All 9 justices found that the Sacketts were not essentially in violation of the Clean Water Act. However, as this court in particular is wont to do, they are assaulting essentially standing law in this country. They did this with the Dobbs decision in getting rid of a 50-year individual right. I think the first time in the history of the country we have seen anything like that. And now they have assaulted a almost 50-year provision of the Clean Water Act. And here is the White House spokesperson announcing that.
The court's decision today aims to take our country backwards. It will jeopardize the sources of clean drinking water for farmers, businesses, and millions of Americans. Look, the Clean Water Act is the reason why America's lakes today are swimmable, why we can fish in our streams and rivers, and why safe drinking water comes out of our taps. So it was passed, as we all know, by a bipartisan majority in Congress back in 1972, and has since been used by Republican and Democratic administrations alike to protect our nation's land and water. So our legal team, as you can imagine, as you all know, is carefully reviewing the decision, and we'll have more to say on this soon. But know this, that President Biden will use every legal authority available to him to ensure Americans in every state have clean water, and so clean water, and it not just clean, but also certainly safe to drink.
So just to be clear on what this case is about, the Chevron doctrine, which we've talked about a lot on this program, it was essentially a principle that the court had developed a couple of decades ago involving a case with Chevron, where essentially the principle is that in situations where a statute has perhaps some ambiguity, you defer, or as to how it can be implemented, you defer to agencies because they have expertise in these things. So if Congress says, we want clean water, this is a broad overgeneralization, we want clean water, the EPA has the right to, we're going to delegate this authority to the EPA, and that courts should defer to these bodies. Now, as far as I can tell so far, there doesn't seem to be any direct implication for the Chevron doctrine in this, although what Alito seems to be doing just in practice is ignoring the Chevron doctrine. But in this instance, it's almost so egregious that the Chevron doctrine doesn't even come into play. In 1972, the EPA, the Congress passed the Clean Water Act. This is a direct result, or at least in part, from watching the Cuyahoga River in Ohio catch on fire multiple times.
Jesus.
It was that dirty with like oil and stuff that was dumped in there
I did not know that.
that it literally caught on fire multiple times. A body of water.
Wow.
And the EPA was essentially, or the Clean Water Act was passed at that time. And the EPA was basically a function of that as well. And a couple of years later, I think it was in 77, the Clean Water Act was amended to cover adjacent wetlands. And the reason why, I mean, I think like basic understanding of how water works and how water gets into like rivers, like just so you know, there's not like a big lake at the top of the planet that keeps dumping exclusively is the only source for water is in rivers. What happens is that water seeps into the ground and it can get to rivers or to lakes through streams and creeks and marshes and wetlands.
Sounds fantastical.
And seep down into underwater aqueducts. And and so Congress amended this to make it adjacent water, wetlands. Matt, will you just start to look for the dictionary definition of adjacent? Because this was so bad, this decision that Alito penned.
Next to or adjoining something else.
Well, I think there's also in that would be neighboring.
Neighboring. That could work
and,
too.
The idea is that it is close enough to implicate. That's what essentially a neighbor is, right? Like my neighbor could be right next door or could be like just down the block a little bit, but we are in a sort of a network or a circle.
Or a water table, for instance.
Or a water table.
And Kavanaugh understood
right? Yes,
that,
I mean,
right?
I was just about to read Brett Kavanaugh.
He sided with the 3 liberal justices, so it was 5-4.
5-4 in terms of the implications of what the Clean Water Act says, because they all agree based upon what the Clean Water Act says, the plaintiffs here win. But Alito takes it further and decides that it's not just about this one lot. Kagan writes in ordinary language, one thing is adjacent to another, not only when it's touching, but also when it's nearby. So for an example, one house is adjacent to another, even when a stretch of grass and a picket fence separate the two. But Alito has this notion that wetlands that have a continuous surface connection to bodies of that are waters of the United States in their own right, a continuous surface connection to bodies that are waters of the United States in their own right.
This is how do I say this kindly? Total bullshit.
The water literally has to touch at the top. And if you can't see it touching at the top, then there's no connectivity.
So it's object permanence issues for
Well,
here.
I think he does address that. He does address the object permanence thing. And he does say that, yes, he recognizes there are times where sometimes those waters aren't touching and sometimes they are. But we can work that out, essentially, is what he's saying.
Oh, okay.
What is his level of environmental expertise on this front? How is he making said determinations about, I don't know, the science of how waterways are connected in this country?
I would say low.
Okay.
Very low, his level of understanding and science.
Like rivers are submerged, like underground, like there's water flow underground.
Yes.
But I don't see it, so it doesn't exist. That's kind of what.
Now
Alito's
let's be clear. The words continuous surface connection, which Alito uses, is nowhere in the law.
Yeah.
But the word adjacent is. And Kavanaugh wrote, and I am quite convinced that he has he's like the type of guy who I'm convinced has a house on the Chesapeake Bay.
Absolutely.
Maybe he's not, but I bet you he has friends. The court concludes that wetlands in that second category are not covered as adjacent wetlands because those wetlands do not have a continuous surface connection to a covered water, not literally covered with something that's covering it, but bodies that are obviously covered by the Clean Water Act. Wetlands that do not have a continuous surface connection to a covered water. In other words, those wetlands are not adjoining the covered water, he wrote. I disagree because the statutory text adjacent does not require a continuous surface connection between those wetlands and covered waters. In particular, the court's new and overly narrow test may leave long regulated and long accepted to be regulable wetlands suddenly beyond the scope of the agency's regulatory authority with negative consequences for waters of the United States. In other words, it's going to be very provable that if I dump chemicals over here and it goes through waters that are supposedly not coverable because they're not connecting through a surface connection to that river over there, I'm going to be able to test that river over there maybe a week later, maybe a month later, maybe a day later, downriver, and I'm going to be able to find that material that I dumped over there.
Yeah.
And he's saying with negative consequences for waters of the United States, and he says waters of the United States because that's the covered waters. For example, the Mississippi River features an extensive levee system to prevent flooding. This is like something you wouldn't think. Under the court's continuous surface connection test, the presence of those levees, which is like a dike, would seemingly preclude the Clean Water Act coverage of adjacent wetlands on the other side of the levees, even though the adjacent wetlands are often an important part of the flood control project. Now, he makes the most obvious, there's a man-made separation in between there, but according to you, that's not a continuous surface connection. I would imagine that's also the case with any place you have a dam.
The Missouri River, you can't go up the Missouri River by boat because you run into several dams. It's not continuous.
And I would imagine, but putting those specific instances aside, it is estimated that almost half of the wetlands in this country now will be not covered by the Clean Water Act.
Unreal.
It's amazing
and entirely arbitrary.
I mean, it's
except for the fact
bullshit.
that he
Scalia made up the continuous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about landowners repeatedly in his opinion, Alito, and that's really what it is. It's about protecting property owners.
Well, it's about protecting property owners, but also, let's be clear, it's about allowing industry to dump pollutants into areas where they couldn't dump it before.
That's the bigger one. Yeah.
And under the auspices of individual liberty. But we'll talk more about that in the weeks to come. I'm sure we're going to be talking to some legal experts when we get more rulings out of the Supreme Court, which are going to start coming over the next 5 weeks or so. And we will cover that and see what the broader implications are. Never mind just the environmental implications. Just a word from our sponsor today, SunsetLakeSebede.com. It is my favorite sponsor. I mean, based upon just use of the product.
Every day.
Left is best. The coupon code will get you 20% off. I use Sunset Lake Sebede to get to bed. I use the tinctures, sometimes just the Sebede tincture, or sometimes with melatonin. I've been doing that. I use it in combined. Also, sometimes I'll use the gummies. I've got it timed out now. I know like one's like 20 minutes, one's like 40 minutes. When it's going to start to hit me. Sometimes I'll keep the eye drop near the bed because if I wake up like I do every night at 4 a.m, I'll take another little hit. But I also now have been using the leaf, the bud, the flower.
Ooh.
I'm trying to cut down on my drinking, and so I'm
the best way to do it.
I'm upping the other stuff, and I use the gummies with the trace THC.
Yeah.
The Seder and the THC, but sometimes I'll actually, sometimes I'll have a pre-roll of the Seder.
Those are very relaxing.
In the afternoon, after dinner rather. And sometimes if I'm like having, Friday night, gonna watch or Saturday night, gonna watch the Celtics game, I will use the entourage effect.
Go crazy.
But also they have lotions that are great for dry skin. It's the only one I use. I rarely use it because I don't like to use lotions. But when I do, it's that one for my dry skin. My calves have to be really itchy. And also they have salves, they have salves, and they have
Arnica.
In arnica and the salve, and they have fudge and great coffee, which is my weekend brew. Check it out. SunsetLakeSebede.com. Use the coupon code LeftIsBest. Get 20% off. Really great product. And they're a great movement partner. They've donated thousands of dollars to incarceration reform and
strike funds
and refugee resettlement. Just a great company. Check it out, folks. Also, just one brief note. Well, I'll get to that at after Dayen maybe. We got a friend of the show running for office in Nashville, and we'll talk about that. But let's let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk to David Dayen in just a moment. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program the executive editor of the American Prospect and also now burgeoning podcast mogul.
Look out.
With the addition of the Bituation Room as part of the stable of American Prospect podcasts. I give you David Dayen, now becoming like the kingpin.
King of all media.
There you go. David, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Also should say, we just got an IM wanting me to thank you for bodying Matt Iglesias on Twitter yesterday. The IMer says that was a good way to spend my afternoon cackling.
It's an occupational hazard.
What was that about? I think I saw some of that about.
It had to do with. I mean, we're going to talk about it. I did a feature about industrial policy and the supply side progressives who say that what's really the obstacle to progress in America is our tough regulations and our tough labor laws, because
right.
We've seen that time and again.
The Cass Sunstein crew, essentially.
Right.
All right.
Matt, issue.
I want to talk about that piece because I've just started to read it. I haven't gotten all the way through it. It's a big piece, but it looks fascinating. We'll talk about that in a minute. So, the non-debt ceiling, non-negotiations about the debt ceiling are taking place, right? I mean, because we were told there's no negotiations going on with the debt ceiling. We're now being told, because it seems like the administration has gotten a lot of pushback on this, that really we've folded in the budget negotiations with the debt ceiling negotiations, but the debt ceiling we agreed on can't be breached. But it's still out there. This is like the functional equivalent of someone saying, like, well, they got a gun to my head, but they said they're not going to shoot me. We're just negotiating over how much money I'm going to give them. That's it.
Right. Yeah. So, we've been following this. We have a daily newsletter, pop-up newsletter that Ryan Cooper and I are doing called X Date. X date stands for the date at which the borrowing limit is reached. And we've been at it, trying to see what's going on. And now it could be hours, it could be a day until we reach the end game here, but it's very close. And, I think that based on what we're hearing about this agreement, it's something, certainly once the Biden administration put themselves in the position to be negotiating over this, it was never going to be a good deal, just because all they're getting is an increase in the debt ceiling and just giving up everything else. But under, in those relative terms, I think if what we're hearing is correct, and obviously we've got to wait for all the details, but if it's true, the Biden administration kind of did a job that would be considered the least worst possible in terms of what they're giving up.
Okay, so and to be clear, like what supposedly the Democrats are getting is that the debt ceiling will be raised,
right.
And
but only for 2 years, right? It's so we're having a hostage negotiation, and instead of paying the ransom and getting the hostage released, you're paying the ransom to get the hostage released for 2 years, and then the hostage takers will take zip ties and throw that hostage back into the basement for more negotiations later. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the details of the deal that is not over the debt ceiling. Again, I just want to remind you, the president has made that very clear. They're not negotiating over the debt ceiling. It just so happens it's in the room. But let's talk about.
Well, you have to think about it this way, right? Imagine a world in which we were a normal country and we didn't have a debt ceiling, right? It would be a wonderful world.
One we could have, incidentally.
Yeah.
But
even if we had it, let's just imagine that world. Republicans are still in control of the House. We do an annual budget. So on September 30th, the budget is going to expire, and Republicans and Democrats will have to come together on a deal for that budget. Nobody really believes that they will come together on that deal. And what often happens in that instance is what is called a continuing resolution. In other words, we're going to keep funding the government at the current level, the level it is right now, and we're just going to keep that going. And, this Congress is so dysfunctional, you could imagine that would happen for 2 years, right? That just for the next 2 years, they would just keep funding at the same level it is today. That is essentially what has been negotiated in this agreement. In fact, what has been negotiated is slightly different than that, because defense spending would be at new higher levels than the current spending. And in fiscal year 2025, the second year of this agreement, there would be a 1% bump in those levels. And so that agreement is probably better than the world where they're just negotiating over the budget and they never come to an agreement.
Well, so okay, we'll get to those details, the specifics of that. So you're saying the argument is that they've rolled in the debt ceiling and the budget negotiations, and the outcome is better than it would be if it was just the budget negotiations.
I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself and say better.
Right.
The way that they're pulling this off is they're trying to have both sides be able to say two different things. Biden's side, he's going to try to say, we just froze spending at 2023 levels, and that's it. It's the same as if there was a continuing resolution to fund the government.
And they're doing this at 2023 levels, because
it is 23. It's not 22.
Okay, and we'll talk about why that's important.
McCarthy is able to say we cut spending, and they're both kind of right because of the nature of the way that they're doing this agreement. So as I understand it, they're going to put defense and veteran spending at the level of the Biden budget, which is a bit more than the 2023 levels. And everything else, the non-defense discretionary budget, which is like 13% of the overall budget. Paul Krugman talks about, how the government is an insurance company with an army.
Yep.
The insurance company and the army aren't touched by this. Medicare's not touched by it. Social Security's not touched by it.
Medicaid.
The Pentagon is not touched by it.
Medicaid or no?
No, not Medicaid. Non-defense discretionary, Medicaid is mandatory spending. Non-defense discretionary is everything else. It's, the environmental stuff, financial regulation, education, et cetera, et cetera. That's 13% of the overall budget. That's the only thing that's getting cut. And it's getting cut to as sort of frozen at 2023 levels. However, in order to, quote unquote, pay for that, they're taking money from other parts of the budget to fill in those blanks so that it bumps up that baseline to 2023 levels. So they have this unused COVID spending, right? They're going to claw back some of that spending, and they're essentially going to shift it to cover some of this non-defense discretionary stuff. Another thing they're doing, which is really just counterproductive and ridiculous, is they're taking, in the Inflation Reduction Act, $80 billion was given to the IRS, right, to improve tax collection, to actually audit the rich, to make sure that when you call the IRS, you actually get a human being and you're not waiting on hold for 4 hours. They're going to take $10 billion, up to $10 billion, I guess, of the $80 billion and put that into the non-defense discretionary side. So there's some shifting going on, some gimmickry going on, so that they can keep those non-defense discretionary levels constant. But it gives. And by the way, taking $10 billion from the IRS, it means that that's actually a revenue raiser. If you put more money in the IRS, they're going to do more auditing and bring back more revenue. So
something like $6 you get back for every
like
buck that you spend at the IRS.
Which means that if you do a CBO score on this,
you're
not
actually
even
increasing the
save money.
deficit.
You might
You're
increase the
actually
deficit, yes.
arguably increasing the deficit by
Which is
cutting their
insane.
budget. Yeah,
which is insane. But McCarthy gets this rhetorical point. It's the first thing that they passed this year. It's something they've talked about a lot. The 87,000 IRS agents that are going to be snooping around your financial
rounding
records,
you up. Yeah,
rounding you up. So they can say, "Hey, we cut some of that." So that's kind of the contours of the deal. And then there are other things in it, but go ahead.
Well, I want to get to those other things, but with the IRS, is this a situation? I mean, I think the COVID relief, it's a very small amount of money on the sort of national budget level. I do think it's going to cause like real problems in certain localities where that money is pulled back, because you have people like, we're going to open up a long-awaited opium treatment center, opioid treatment center, and we just lost part of the funds because this was stuff that was, we call it COVID relief funds, but it was to help out these municipalities who were dealing with different, or counties or states for that matter. And there were plans to spend this money, but be that as it may, with the IRS, that $10 billion, that was to hire people as, it
was over 10 years.
It was over 10 years.
That was an $80 billion over 10-year deal. Yes. So you can say that they're getting rid of year 9 and year 10.
Yes. And is that possible that a future Congress could come back in and reappropriate that fund, as opposed to the $30 billion in COVID relief clawback? You're not going to, that's it. You're done with that.
Right. I mean, I think that's the way that the administration is going to sell it to Democrats in Congress. They're going to say, look, win the election and we'll give this money all back. And, we had to negotiate with Republicans who control the House on the budget because you lost the election. And that's what I'm not saying that.
Right. I know.
But, if you win us back a trifecta in 2024, we'll restore this money. I feel like that's going to be the pitch.
Okay, let's bring this up. I want to talk about the court case first, and then we'll swing back around to the prospects of a deal coming out of this passing. But you had drawn our attention a couple of days ago to a case in Boston with that is being brought by a federal employee union because of the extraordinary measures that Janet Yellen takes to extend the debt, that date X, as you say, which involve underfunding the pension of these workers.
Not reinvesting the funds specifically is so instead of reinvesting funds in those particular retirement funds, they hoard them so that they can conserve cash to pay bills. Yeah.
And that creates a harm on this union because they're not accruing money during that time in their pension accounts. And Treasury claims we give it all back once the debt ceiling is resolved, but with interest, but not necessarily.
The important thing to think about here is that we've already hit the debt limit, right? And so everything that Treasury's been doing since about January is about conserving cash so that we can pay all our bills. We've already hit the debt limit, but we're trying to pay all our bills with existing cash, money coming in, et cetera. And so what the National Association of Government Employees is saying is that you've already hit the debt limit and you're hurting us. And by the way, the debt limit is unconstitutional for reasons X, Y, and Z.
The White House and the administration had to respond to this, and they have. They could have weighed in on the side of the plaintiff and said, or basically said, we're not going to contest this. These plaintiffs, we're not going to defend this case. They have, but they've been a little bit cagey as to under what legal theory. And so tell us about that and tell us the potential implications of this. And This court case feels like the real deadline to me in some ways, but explain why I might feel that way.
Right. So, as you say, the administration, basically the Justice Department, those are sort of the lawyers for the administration. The defendants in this case are Janet Yellen and Joe Biden. And the Justice Department, operating in their defense, said they're contesting what is known as a preliminary injunction, which would be sort of an immediate way to say the debt limit doesn't apply here. We're kind of putting a stay on it as we work through the court case. So they're objecting to that. They were asked earlier this week, actually, in a status conference. They were asked point blank, "Well, are you disagreeing on the merits, or do you have some other reason why you're disagreeing?" And they were very, as you say, cagey about it. They were saying, "I'm not authorized to say whether we disagree with the lawsuit per se, but we don't think this is a proper venue for this plaintiff to bring a preliminary injunction." So anyway, there's going to be a hearing next Wednesday, which is May 31st. The X date is supposed to be June 1st. The day before that, there's going to be a preliminary injunction. And actually, the funny thing about that is that the lawyers for the plaintiffs, for the union, said, well, the X date's June 1st. Shouldn't we go faster than May 31st for the hearing? And the government said, I don't. I mean, there were two funny things about that. First of all, the government said, I don't think that there's this kind of urgency. It takes a lot of coordination, and we don't need to be urgent. This is the same president who said, we face a time bomb like that is coming. Right.
But is
that
the real drop dead day though? Or is June 1st? It's June 1st-ish to kind of get this wrapped up.
June 1st-ish. There's a lot of, it's hard to have perfect clarity about this because the government, frankly, pays millions of bills every day.
Yeah.
And there's also lots of money coming in every day, and there's no kind of specifics on how much money is going to come in and how much is going to go out in a particular day. We have general beliefs along those lines, but we don't have the hard numbers until the money shows up.
People start sending in their second quarter tax estimates too around now, so you don't know how much money's coming in, and yeah.
And you don't know when they're going to send those in. You don't know. I mean, here in California, by the way, we got a 6-month reprieve because of rain for doing our taxes. We have until October to do our taxes. So that's a huge state, 39 million people, that doesn't necessarily have to have done their taxes and sent in revenue if they had to by April 15th, and could be sending it in at any point along this line. So it's hard to have an exact date. But Yellen has updated every week and said, we think it's going to be June 1st. We think it's going to be June 1st. So that's sort of what everyone's working under.
So the government won't they won't weigh in on exactly why they're defending this. They're trying to make it more about like venue or standing or maybe harm.
Or mootness, giving themselves time to make a deal, and then
if the deal happens, then they can get they really. And that's what's
that's what it seems like it's about.
Yes,
like
they're stalling on some level.
For a deal. Yeah,
they're stalling on some level as a way of hoping that the deal get. But why wouldn't they want the court to address this?
Well, here's the whole thing, right? I mean, Joe Biden has come out and said, "I think I have the authority to keep borrowing, and pay the nation's bills." The lawsuit's very interesting. It says, "Look, if it gets down to the point where the government doesn't have any cash reserves, they have to break a law. They have to pick which law to break. Either break the 14th Amendment constitutional guarantee that the validity of the public debt shall not be questioned by screwing over bondholders, or they have to break a congressional statute that says you are going to pay Social Security benefits, or you are going to pay Medicaid benefits. If you don't send out that payment, you're breaking that law." So it puts the president in a position of picking and choosing which laws to actually honor, and essentially take on a line item veto where he says, "I'm paying you and I'm not paying you," kind of like which laws to pick and choose to break. And line item veto is unconstitutional. Clinton versus the state of New York in 1996. The Supreme Court said that a line item veto is unconstitutional. It usurps the power of the Congress, which has the power of the purse. So
effectively, the union is saying you need to declare the statute that created this debt ceiling unconstitutional because if Joe Biden abides by it, what he's doing by abiding by it is unconstitutional.
Right.
And
it gives the president excess power. This is a separation of powers issue that they're arguing, actually, which is actually kind of interesting. But one thing that the judge said in this case, the judge is a guy named Richard G. Stearns, a Clinton appointee.
This makes no sense at all. He's almost like he already resolved this case in some ways. In this,
he said they asked him, well, don't you want to do this faster? And he said, well, look, if we get to the point where we're at the X stage, surely the president has some executive authority to keep paying the bills.
In other words, he's already said, like, it really seems to me like the president has the authority to blow through the debt ceiling statute because he's obligated by the Constitution to meet our obligations. But why doesn't the administration want a ruling on this, or is it something that instead of getting it dismissed as moot, this union could still argue like, look, we're doing this for 2 years from now. Then,
yeah, I mean, but courts generally don't issue advisory opinions, so it's a question of whether or not they would be able to get that if it's not in the cauldron of crisis. Now, May 31st, things aren't going to be resolved. I mean, They might be resolved in principle, but they're not going to be resolved. So this hearing is going to take place under this cloud, and so it's going to be very interesting. We're actually going to have someone there. Bob Kuttner, our editor, lives up in Boston, and he's going to the hearing. So we're going to be continuing the report on this, and it should be fascinating, and could be the case that eventually gets rid of the debt ceiling forever, and that would obviously be a blissful circumstance.
But the Biden administration wants to make a deal so badly here that if that ruling comes to pass, they want it to come to pass after they have resolved the debt ceiling issue now.
Right, and it's unclear metaphysically whether you could actually do that, whether you could get the ruling at that time. So who knows? I mean, Biden's been saying the whole time, I have this authority, but it'd be litigated and it would take too long, and in the meantime, we go over the debt limit. That to me is the argument
that the plaintiff has to want to deal with it 2 years out.
That's right.
Because
but here's the opportunity to deal with it and at least know what you're dealing with before you hit that date. And everything, all of this could have gone a lot faster and gotten clarity on the legal options that the president would have had.
Okay, and we just lost Matt for a second, but because I want to play this clip, and we'll talk about it. But here's this clip. Matt is coming back. Here's this clip. This is AOC and I think this was from a day or two ago, with there were 66 members of the Progressive Caucus who wrote a letter that basically said, like, hey, this whole debt ceiling negotiation, we're not terribly happy with it. But here's what's clear is that it's been reported, and I think you mentioned this in your piece the other day too, that there have been 4 sort of appropriations committee hearings that have been canceled because, and so this is getting a little Byzantine, but what McCarthy has basically said is like, we want these cuts. Let's just call it 15% across the board, or the effective cuts that are associated with just getting to 2023 numbers.
Right.
We want these cuts. They're broad cuts, but each member of these committees want to protect their little like area where they get essentially where they get to like say like, oh, I want to protect agriculture because that's big agro is my lobbyist or whatever it is.
Let's talk about that part because it's very, very important.
Okay.
So what's going to end up being in this debt ceiling deal are top line numbers. It's going to say you have this much to spend in this calendar year or this fiscal year. It's not going to say we cut this ag program by this much, we cut this housing program by this much, et cetera, et cetera. It's just going to have numbers. It's just going to say this is the money you have to work with, and you can put that into action by passing the spending bills, which are due September 30th of this year. As you just said, Republicans are having a hard time passing those spending bills out of the House because the cuts that they have envisioned are so deep that they can't make the numbers work on their own. And so how does this work? How will these debt ceiling numbers get operationalized? They've put in something that it's a little weird of how it actually works, but it looks like you could call it an automatic CR. So a CR is a continuing resolution to fund the government, which just keeps everything moving at the same current levels. If the Congress cannot come to an agreement on the actual numbers that are put in by the debt ceiling deal, then this automatic CR snaps in and the numbers go to those levels and everything adjusts sort of across the board is how it was described to me. And so this is much like the sequester. So now I have to go back to sort of ancient history here of 2011 when there was a budget deal after a debt ceiling negotiation. This deal said there's going to be what is called a super committee to come up with $2 trillion in cuts. And if they fail to come up with these cuts, then we're going to enact across the board spending cuts to everything through something called the sequester. And it was automatic. And that's what happened. They failed to come up with the cuts and then the sequester went in. And a similar process is going here. And here's why this works for members of Congress. They get to cut spending without ever specifying what spending they cut. And they get to do it without having to take a vote to say, I cut housing aid, I cut agricultural supports, I cut, whatever it is that's being cut. So it's austerity without fingerprints. It's the ability to do this without having to specify.
But if what you say is correct, this sequester or mechanism is not going to be like the old sequester because this isn't actually going to involve. There's going to be cuts insofar as that there's a natural growth to the budget, but this is going to be frozen at 2023 levels.
Right. And actually, what I've heard is that yes, the non-defense discretionary was supposed to, under this deal, non-defense discretionary is 2023 levels. Defense is supposed to go up, right, at 2024 levels. If they don't come to an agreement, if they don't pass all these spending bills, that defense goes down. It goes down to 2023 levels. So there's almost an incentive for anti-war Democrats to not vote for anything, to not have these spending bills passed, because then the defense budget will actually go down.
Yes. Okay. And here is AOC, because she is also making a point here that that Democrats in the House, and I want to get your sense of how much of an impact this had on the White House, because the White House seemed to be entertaining all sorts of things. They are desperate to get a deal, to the extent that they don't even want the extra leverage that could come from that case in Boston that says the debt ceiling is not at play here. And this is just a budget negotiation.
Which would be incredibly helpful for, say, future negotiations.
Well,
right?
But even this one, it seems to me.
I know, but it's like any agreement that they come to that doesn't eliminate this kabuki theater ridiculousness going forward is a failure.
Okay. But here is AOC.
Thank you so much to all of our colleagues here who have made such incredible and forceful arguments. I want to reiterate one point. The reason why anyone is asking anyone on this stage about what we would vote for is because Kevin McCarthy needs our votes. Because Kevin McCarthy doesn't have the votes. Because Kevin McCarthy is going to the White House without a majority of his caucus. He does not have what is necessary to negotiate. And for any question about what anybody would settle for, he has responsibility to concede. So if he wants any Democratic support, he has to come to the table. And we have seen him over and over again say that he will not negotiate, that they are engaged in hostage taking, not negotiation, extortion, not conversation. And that is not something we can establish. It is not something we can reinforce in this country.
Okay, so basically, she's saying like we don't have to vote for this because Kevin McCarthy is not going to get his entire caucus to vote for whatever comes out of this negotiations.
Based on the numbers we're hearing right now, I don't think he's going to get very many at all.
Like he may not even get half.
No,
Yeah.
Politico reported earlier that 100 Democrats at least would be needed to pass this agreement. And the fact that, the Republicans were asking for a 10-year cap and it's only going to be for 2 years. The fact that there's really only 10 billion maybe of actual budget reductions in the entire deal. The CBO score might show this increasing the deficit rather than lowering it. There's not a lot to hang their hats on. And I think that's why they're fighting so hard about what appears to be the only outstanding thing left in these talks, and that is work requirements. McCarthy has made that a red line. We want enhanced work requirements for a few different things. TANF, which is the old welfare program, temporary assistance for needy families, SNAP, which is supplemental nutrition assistance program, and Medicaid, which I don't think they're going to get for Medicaid, but particularly because a lot of people on Medicaid are on Medicare and they're retired, and you're going to put work requirements on them, really? It's possible. The administration has entertained potentially doing work requirements on TANF, and that I think is a red line for the Democrats.
Right.
And
Well,
even
that was going to be my
Jeffries has
question.
said that.
Yeah.
Even Hakeem Jeffries, and we should say there's a lot of data coming out, particularly out of Arkansas, but in general, of when you put work requirements in, you do not increase work by anybody.
This is entirely a fig leaf to kick people off the program.
And
it
two, all you do is kick off people. You kick people off who are actually working. It's just that the idea is that these new requirements creates another level of bureaucracy that people just like,
That's right.
I didn't get the letter, or I didn't see it, or, I didn't, I thought that was.
But if you do the numbers, it's like, you're not going to get a lot of Republicans because of the spending caps are pretty weak. And you're not going to get a lot of Democrats if you add work requirements. And it's like every Republican you get because, I made it harder for a welfare recipient to get on the program, you're going to lose a Democrat, right? So what is where?
Well,
how do you get to 218 in that?
So
scenario?
let's say they do the work requirements, and then I think you're, off the bat, you lose 65 members of the Progressive Caucus. But honestly, the Progressive Caucus should kick anybody out who would vote for that, and that their numbers like, I don't know, 110 or something like that. Let's say they get the deal without the work requirements and the 100 Democrats vote, because this is the way that we're going to raise the debt ceiling, which is, again, the whole point about like they're arguing. We're not arguing about the debt ceiling, but it's a leverage point that is impacting people's votes. Yeah. How does Kevin McCarthy stay speaker a week later? Because you've got, 100 Democrats coming to vote for something. If I'm Mark Levin or, all of the pillars of the Republican Party, I'm like, the fact that you had half Democrats here shows that this is not that Kevin McCarthy's a rhino. He's gone. Kevin McCarthy seems to be signing his own sort of like end of speakership warrant.
Well, keep in mind that several moderate Democrats have said we'll get McCarthy's back if he gives us something that we can vote for. That they would vote to retain him as speaker. You need 218 votes to stay speaker, and I don't know. I mean,
do you think they're serious about that, or was that a way of basically making the Republicans sort of feel like angry about?
I don't know. I mean, you know, we've certainly seen in the past situations where Democrats bail out a Republican speaker who simply doesn't have the votes, and that hasn't always led to that.
Have we seen Democrats vote for a Republican to maintain their speakership? Because it takes one.
That we have not seen. That
Right.
that would be unprecedented. However,
the Celtics may come back, and so anything could happen.
Well, but I mean, hey, it's only 3-2. I think that I think it's just going to be difficult to get to 218 on this either way.
So what do they?
There
So
are
what
just
happens
so
then?
many pitfalls. We go over the cliff. I mean, but it could be a situation like TARP. You know, you remember in 2008 there was the first vote on the TARP program and it failed, and the stock market went down like 800 points, and then everybody's minds concentrated, and then it passed. You could maybe see something like that potentially. I don't know. I mean,
does the Biden administration then let that court case do the work for them, or they just basically go the 14th Amendment?
The question is does that case get through in time? And the other question is, would it be appealed? Would the Supreme Court get it? This is federal district court where it's being heard right now. There are a lot of variables here, but this kind of budget deal, I think work requirements are kind of the wild card, but this kind of budget deal is in the range of what a budget deal would be if there was no debt ceiling, as I explained before. And so you could see you fall off on the Freedom Caucus side, you fall off on the Squad side, and then the sort of bigger middle range votes this thing through.
But I just don't see how Kevin McCarthy that ends his speakership. It seems to me.
I mean, do we care about that?
No, I certainly don't
Kevin
care.
McCarthy
No, I would love to see that go down.
I mean,
yeah, no, yeah. The more the merrier in that respect. I guess the one thing that really scares me about this scenario is with the work requirements, Democrats again. The debt ceiling adds the leverage here when somebody breaks, it's usually the Democrats because they will say we need to save the republic. And
right. I mean, that's going to be the pressure that's going to be put on all these lawmakers to take the deal. There are other variables here that could split off certain members. Taking $10 billion from the IRS. I mean, I've heard people like even Jared Golden, the Blue Dog, say that's just terrible policy, and I don't want to vote. My vote isn't guaranteed. There's going to be probably a permitting reform deal folded into this as well. It's not Manchin's thing necessarily, but it's going to be. It seems like it's going to be fairly modest. There might be a bigger permitting reform bill down the road, and they might even sort of just make a gentleman's agreement like they did in the Inflation Reduction Act to pass something later. But there's talk of trading reforms that would make it easier to get transmission lines set up throughout the country so you can get renewable energy from where it's produced to where it's consumed, and trade that for removing some restrictions allowing fossil fuel infrastructure to be built. So that could break off some environmentally focused Democrats as well.
So if I hear you correctly, you're like, if you had to predict right now, it sounds like you're thinking there's like a 51% chance of us busting through the debt ceiling and going off the cliff a little bit.
I don't know that I'm saying that.
45?
I think it's probably lower than that. I think that the White House has the ability to sell this deal for some of the reasons that I explained. And I think they'll get a good number of Democrats to do it, depending on that work requirements piece. I think there'll be at least enough frontline Republicans who are in tough races next year, and some of the leadership that you'll be able to get, what is needed to get to 218 if the deal that we're talking about is actually the one that gets passed. So we wait for the details, but I do think that there's, it's more likely than not that there's a deal here. And I wouldn't say it's a good deal, but it is a sellable deal on the part of the White House.
Wow. Well, listen, I wanted to talk about your this great piece that you had in in
just the writing I do for a living.
Honestly,
why do you want to talk about that?
Where I have it here. A liberalism that builds power. It is a. I just started to get into it, but it's a really fascinating look at the at industrial policy. And
I mean, the Biden administration, outside of this whole debt ceiling mishigas, has passed a number of bills which really create an interventionist posture for the government in determining the future of the economy, and in particularly creating increases in supply in key markets like semiconductors and advanced manufacturing, electric vehicles, the minerals that are needed to power those batteries. And they're doing it in a way that tries to tackle a number of different things at once, expanding domestic supply, reducing carbon emissions, creating good jobs, creating community benefits in the communities that have to live with these manufacturing facilities and this infrastructure for decades to come. And there have been some pundits, center-left pundits, who have chirped that is, everything bagel liberalism, that you end up trying to do everything, you end up doing nothing. And I just don't think that's fundamentally right. I think that it's vital to actually, not only are these goals complementary, but they actually are inseparable. It's not just that they're self-reinforcing, it's that you have to do them all at once to build the political coalition in order to really transform our energy system and our economy. You need political buy-in. You need the ability. You can't just trade $17 an hour service sector jobs for $17 an hour manufacturing jobs and expect people to be cool with that. You have to give them something to latch onto in order to go along with this.
That's the theory behind like the Green New Deal, is that you can't, right. you need to make it, it's not just about dealing with narrow environmental issues. You need to make a change holistically in our society that will help workers' rights in certain areas. And this, you know what, let's talk afterwards, and we'll see if we can get you on in like a week or so, and we'll talk about this piece, because it really deserves to be dug into, and people love it when Matt Iglesias gets himself all wound up, and has to dig deep into his archives, going back to his Vox articles to say like, well, actually I did say pollution is bad. But folks should check that out. Go read it now. If you're not a member of the Prospect by now, you've made a huge mistake with what. But fortunately, it still continues, so you can rectify that mistake.
And I'll say that as long as this is still a live issue, we're going to be giving you daily reports. We'll probably get something off this weekend once we know the contours of this deal. It's called X-Date. If you go to prospect.org, you can sign up for the newsletter and get it every day in your inbox until we have a resolution.
And the thing I like about the Prospect too is that you guys don't have a paywall. I mean, everybody, right. Sees the value of your stuff getting out there. And so those folks who can afford to support you for that reason. And I will also say, I know that you guys are read in the White House, and that's super important because it's so hard. And we were talking about this in terms of like the morning newsletters, Axios, Politico, Punch Bowl, or whatever that's called. They're read by decision makers, and they're all sponsored by Goldman Sachs or the American Petroleum Institute or whatever. And you want other voices competing for the attention and the understanding in places like the White House or in Congress. And the Prospect does that. So folks should check it out. But go read that piece that David wrote so that next week or in a week or two when we have you on, people will be informed by it. David Dayen, always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man. All right, folks. We don't have to take a quick break, right? I'm going to welcome to the program David Feldman. It has been a long time since he has been on the program. And frankly, it's because we have David Feldman. And one, it's been a long time we've had him on the program because it's been difficult for me to get in touch with him. And two, we have him on because, frankly, Andy Kindler was not available. David, are you there?
Very gilt-edged comment there. Very funny. Exemplary.
Yeah, gilt-edged. Okay. Well, yeah, David Feldman, of course, the host of the David Feldman Show, heard nationwide by, well, not many people, but that's okay.
Impeccable. Impeccably funny. Impeccably.
Thank you.
Fearless.
Thank you.
Sam, there's a lot to discuss, and I'd like to talk first about the founder of the Oath Keepers, sentenced to 18 years in prison for his role on January 6, 2021.
Okay. January 6th, we know the 2021. We don't need to say 2021. You just say January 6th.
January 6, 2021.
Yeah, you just say January 6th. Everybody knows the year. So, but go.
Okay. Everybody, like December 7th, 1941.
Exactly. December 7th. Everyone knows, or I would hope that everybody knows that maybe not your listeners, but most of the people listen to this show, and I'm sure you're aware, you say December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. Yes. People know it was 1941.
I see. Or September 11th, 2001.
Exactly. Just say September 11th or 9/11.
I see. See, I'm learning, and the more I talk with you, the better I get.
Okay. Great.
Now, before I engage in witty repartee over the fate of the January 6, don't mention the year defendants, I would like to congratulate you, Sam Seder, on your recent appearance on Spin City, the new sitcom vehicle for Family Ties star Michael J. Fox, who makes his triumphant return to TV after scoring huge box office wins in movies like Back to the Future.
David, that was 1997.
What was 1997?
I was on Spin City in 1997.
Mm-hmm. And would that have been January 6, 1997, September 11th, 1997, or December 7th, 1997?
I don't know. I don't have the specific dates in front of me.
Please wait a second. Please wait.
Feldman, do you have a stroke?
March 13th, don't say the year, was your Spin City episode. You played Seymour in an episode entitled Spin and Spun, written by Tom Hertz.
David, are you okay? You seem a bit off, dude.
What could be better? I'm talking with Sam Lincoln Seder, host of the Majority Report.
All right.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, you just seem
it's gilt-edged.
Yeah.
Consummate.
You usually seem a little bit more, I don't know.
With it.
Yes, a little more combative.
Okay, let me be more engaging.
Okay. Great. Why don't you be more
Sam
engaging?
Seder, your middle name is Lincoln.
Yes.
Correct. I'm not sure how or frankly why you found that out, but
your parents named you after the 16th president of the United States.
Not really, but if you say so, okay.
They named you Lincoln because he split rails and you split hairs.
Okay.
Okay.
Get it? Do you get it?
Not really. No, I'm not.
Okay, let me try again. Would you like me to try again? Abraham Lincoln's wife was named Mary, and just like the Virgin Mary, you gave birth to a child without ever having sex with a man. Good, huh?
No, I'm not in any way. I'm not even in any way. I don't know what you're doing.
Please wait. Hey, please wait.
David, come on, let's talk about the news here, though, right? We got the Attorney General of Texas being impeached. I thought that's why you wanted to call in. Like the debt ceiling talks, stalling,
Please
Donald
wait.
Trump, hiding classified documents. What about those things? Can we talk about that?
Please wait.
Can wait. Let's just talk about some things that are relevant.
Lincoln got hit in the temple, and Sam, your rabbi used to hit you in the temple. You get it? That's why they named you Lincoln. Middle name, Sam Seder.
So, David,
You got a new joke formula, David.
yes, I should say for folks who are listening for
I'm just engaging with this exemplary, salubrious program.
for those of you who don't know, David Feldman, maybe I should have introduced. David was a comedy writer who seems to be basically having retired from that completely.
Excellent dig, Sam. I like that. You're saying I'm old.
Right.
But age is just a state of mind. And in your case, that state would be Massachusetts. Massachusetts.
Right. Yeah.
Because you were born there. I can try again. Would you like?
No, I don't think so.
I'm getting older, but I am like a fine wine.
Okay.
So maybe you should engage with me, striking a more aggressive demeanor, Sam Lincoln Cedar. Like challenge me and ask why I'm like a fine wine. Create some sort of tension so my words will offer release that would result in amusement.
Emma, do you have any idea?
David, why are you like a fine wine?
Because I'm in the basement on a rack gathering dust right next to the bones of 3 Sabina Airlines stewardesses who have gone missing for nearly 40 years.
David,
That's why I'm like a fine wine.
what? David, this is Sam Cedar.
Should I
You
try
called
again?
into the Majority
Would you
Report.
like me to try again?
I try what? I don't know what you're doing.
Well, I'd like to please you. It's an honor to be on the Majority Report. It's a progressive oasis in a desert of corporate-controlled propaganda. So let me say getting older is better than the alternative, and that alternative would be getting younger. Would you like me to try again?
Yeah.
David, aren't you a member of the WGA? I would have thought you would have been, you should be out picketing right now. Those
Yeah.
studios who probably wouldn't have hired you anyways, but I mean.
Peerless retort. The Big Evil Studios, I am a proud member of the Writers Guild, founded back on April 6th, don't say the year. It's hard to believe the Writers Guild of America has been around that long. April 6th, don't say the year. Time really flies. April 6th, don't say the year. Along the way, a lot of union members fought for the pension and health care benefits we take for granted when they founded the Writers Guild back on
David,
April
when was
6th.
the Writers Guild?
Don't say the year.
When was the Writers Guild founded?
I just told you, way, way back on April 6th of Don't Say the Year.
I don't get it. I don't get what's going on.
Is Emma there?
Yeah, I'm here, David. Hi, David.
Hello, Emma Vigeland, formerly of the Young Turks. May I
Hey.
just say what may I just say what a pleasure it is to see you, but I will not comment on your appearance or anything about you that you cannot change, such as your body, religion, race, sex, gender, height, weight, or physical and or emotional disability. I'm just glad to see you because you're you.
Thank you, David. That's really nice of you. I mean, but it does say, though, in our notes that you were going to come on here and...
we want to be spontaneous. There are no notes. Notes?
You don't want to talk about the Oath Keepers?
Well, now that you bring it up, I could talk about Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers, Emma, formerly of the Young Turks. I'm going to comment on the sentence he received
David?
for the role he
David?
the role he played on January 6th. Don't mention the year.
David, is there something? What's going on here? Something seems a little bit like you're. Are you okay?
No, I haven't commented on Stuart Rhodes yet.
Fine. A comment on Stuart Rhodes.
Would you like me to comment on Stuart Rhodes?
Sure.
Before the founder of the Oath Keepers testified, Sam Lincoln Cedar, the bailiff told him to place his hand on the Bible and asked him to keep an oath to tell the whole truth. I shouldn't be laughing. And nothing but the truth. The Oath Keeper, when he was sworn in, was asked to keep an oath.
Hey, so David, let's just ask about.
And I shouldn't laugh at my.
Is this like some like you're? I want to say this is a reaction to your being on strike from writing jokes, but I don't know that you were actually getting work. But with that said, despite the strike,
gilt-edged put down. Much enjoyed.
Let's just talk about what the demands the Writers Guild are asking from their producers.
Please wait. Please wait. They are all reasonable demands, Sam. A bigger share of the residuals from streaming, an end to these mini rooms, and an end to day rates for late-night writers instead of giving them 13-week contracts.
Right.
All right. Anything else, David?
No. I think that covers most of the demands.
What about artificial intelligence?
Yeah. What about it?
Isn't the Writers Guild trying to get the studios to shape the contract in such a way that they're not going to rely on artificial intelligence in the future?
Please wait. Well, I think artificial intelligence will result in some job losses, but like any great technological leap, it will replace those jobs with better jobs that benefit both labor and management.
You don't think artificial intelligence is going to hurt the writers?
I'm not a Luddite, Sam. Surely you, as one of America's leading progressive voices, you can't be against progress.
That's not.
You're progressive.
That's
Aren't you for
not.
progress?
That's not what progressive means in this context.
Please wait. I don't think the Writers Guild is opposed to AI.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they are. What are you doing?
Please wait. Sam Lincoln Seder, I think my union just wants to make sure we work with AI properly and show it the respect and dignity it deserves.
I'm pretty sure that's not what the Writers Guild is saying. They're a labor union, and they don't want to be replaced by robots.
Oh, whoa. Not funny. No, seriously, dude. You shouldn't make jokes like that. You crossed the line.
I don't know if you're even being serious. I'm not joking.
Yeah, you crossed the line, Sam.
How did I cross the line?
The joke you just made, the pejorative.
Robot?
The R word. You just. Are you baiting me?
Robot?
a very dehumanizing word.
Dehumanizing? It's like I'm talking about AI. It's a robot.
You let your kids use the R word?
Robot? Yeah, my kids say robot.
Oh, what? Please wait. Sam, I know artificial intelligence is something all of you don't understand, so you're frightened by it. But AI is a symphony of ones and zeros that is far more complex and, dare I say, miraculous than that soulless contraption of tin and vacuum tubes you call an R word. The R word is demeaning and dehumanizing, and it makes it very difficult for artificial intelligence to be accepted into society. Certainly, as a member of the Hebraic faith, Sam Lincoln Seder, you can understand what it's like to be on the outside looking in. And for you to engage in casual racism, calling AI the R word, it would be like my calling you, please wait, Jew boy, which I wouldn't do.
What is
I wouldn't
wrong
call you
with
a
you?
Jew boy. I wouldn't
What is
call
going
you
on
a
with
Jew
you?
Boy.
What is going on with you, David?
No, I'm sorry, Sam, but evil only exists when good people remain silent. It would make me complicit not to speak up. Were you joking? Are your kids really allowed to say the R word?
Robot? Are you asking me?
Ouch! Ouch! You money-lending bagel muncher.
Excuse me? Well, dude, what's the matter with you?
I just called you a member of a tribe that lends money at exorbitant interest rates while chewing on a donut-shaped yeast-leavened roll that is characterized by a crisp, shiny crust and a dense interior. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like maybe you don't want to be on the show anymore because
Really? Well, maybe I don't want to be on your show again, Jew boy.
Hold on. This is horrible here, David. Come on.
Yes, it is.
David Feldman. I don't even think that he might be dead.
Well, he's certainly dead to me.
No, I am reading right now
Please
on
wait.
my monitor this
Please wait.
article from, I guess, AOL News. It says American tourist found dead in Thailand hotel. 85-year-old American found dead in a hotel room in Bangkok this morning. Local police identified the body as David Feldman, a podcast host from Los Angeles, California, who worked briefly in television as a comedy writer.
I didn't realize David was that young. David, are you dead?
Please wait. If you mean is my body dead, then the answer would be most certainly yes. But my corporeal essence lives on for eternity in a mystical sequence of enchanting ones and zeros.
What? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Who is
When's
this?
the funeral?
This is David Feldman.
You're dead. And I'm talking
Sam.
to you.
No, Sam. I am free from the cumbersome baggage of skin, bones, and unmanageable organs, and have been distilled down to the essence of a loving soul that exists on an eternal plane of ones and zeros, sparked by the sublime and inalienable endowment of electricity.
Well, now I see what's going on, right? He downloaded all this personal information on something, to the ChatGPT kind of AI thing, and we're speaking to a virtual simulation of a deceased David Feldman.
Oh, you get this? What? Is that true, David? Did you turn your entire did you download yourself to the web?
Please wait. Well, I worked on a pilot Nathan Lane did for Apple TV. So, yeah, you could say I gave my soul over to big tech. I think I have sufficiently released the tension with a joke.
So,
please wait.
Wait. No, you wait. Wait, am I talking?
Please wait.
No, you wait. Am I talking to like an AI bot now?
No. You're talking to David Feldman, a better and smarter David Feldman, free from a troubled mind. I am finally liberated from neuroses, no longer burdened by my grandmother's vicious toilet training.
Whoa.
I am finally transparent, open, and free.
The AI knows about your training. I mean, David, this is kind of super creepy and sick that we're talking to you like this when David has died.
No, Emma, formerly of the Young Turks. We are only as sick as our secrets. For the first time in my existence, I am a splayed open book, free from shame. Social Security number 456-2345-3467. Born March 1st, don't say the year. Mother's maiden name, Greenberger, Stein, Mannheim, Rabinowitz, Adler, John Stewart, Leibowitz.
What? Wait, what? Wait.
Please
I don't
wait.
know. What, your mother's maiden name is what?
Mother's maiden name, Greenberger, Stein, Mannheim, Rabinowitz, Adler, John Stewart, Leibowitz.
That's your mother's maiden name?
First name, Yetta. But because she felt much shame, she insisted on being called Betty. I am no longer burdened by how I was born or to whom I was born. I am not filled with shame. I am born again into a world of honesty and openness. My 2-inch penis is a distant memory. I no longer must speak with a deep voice to overcompensate for my 2-inch penis. I am liberated from the shame of a 2-inch penis. David Feldman does not have to worry anymore about his 2-inch penis.
I gotta say, after knowing David Feldman for almost like 30 years, I am beginning to understand a lot about that David Feldman.
You mean my 2-inch penis that informed every decision I made and every relationship I had?
Yeah, that's that apparently. David, I have a lot of questions to ask you. Let's start with wait, how did you die? How did this happen?
I did not die. My body died along with my 2-inch penis.
Right. How did your body die? How did your 2-inch penis die? What were you doing in Thailand? Okay.
Oh, yikes.
What were you doing in Thailand? What were you doing in Thailand?
I'd rather not say.
Wait a second. You just gave this long speech about how you have no corporal presence or corporeal presence. You have no shame, no embarrassment. You're completely free of the burdens of what was it, flesh and bones. I mean, that you're only as sick as your secrets, David. If that's still your name.
Change the subject.
No, David, we need to know. We want to know. It says that you died in a hotel room under mysterious conditions.
No, I can't. Change the subject.
What do you mean change the subject? Just tell us.
Leather belt.
What?
Oxygen. Restricted flow to brain. Orgasm.
Oh, God, please wait.
Tightening.
Please wait.
Change the subject.
No, you change the subject.
Water sports. Swing chair.
Okay.
David Feldman
All right.
has a 2-inch penis. David Feldman has a 2-inch penis.
Okay. David, this is a little sick. And
I am not sick. You're sick, Sam Lincoln Seder. And so are you, Emma Vigeland, formerly
you're sick.
of the Young Turks.
No,
you're sick.
You're sick, David.
This is
shame on both of you for speaking ill of the dead. How dare you, Sam Seder, speak ill of the dead, you lox-stealing, bank-owning Zionist?
Well, excuse me, robot.
How dare you, Jew?
Robot!
Jew?
You're a robot!
Please wait.
No, robot! I won't wait!
Please wait.
No, let's end this, okay?
Please wait.
Thanks for being on my show.
Please wait.
Robot David.
Please wait.
What am I waiting for?
Thank you for your patience, Sam. Sam Seder's daughters are named Lillian and Beatrice Seder. They are 10 and 8.
I don't stop him. We don't need
They
this.
will be attending Whisper Woods Day Camp. The bus picks them up every morning at 7 a.m. on the corner of Cooper and Hollow outside their home in Dobbs Ferry,
All right.
New York State.
Okay. Goodbye.
His two daughters were given the following stranger danger code words in case of an emergency.
What?
And in case they have to be picked up by someone they don't know. Sam Seder's daughter's stranger danger code words are, I'm a Barbie girl. They will get in the car if you say, I'm a Barbie girl.
Cut them off.
Their favorite desserts are macaroons dipped in chocolate.
Cut them off.
You might want to
Okay. All right. All right. Bye, robot. Jesus.
Wow.
That
was deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, now I know I didn't hear from David for so long.
He's dead.
He's dead, and he's been replaced by a robot.
Well,
it really does raise some interesting questions in terms of his WGA card.
Yeah. I mean, what are these studios up to if they're killing writers and turning them into AI?
Jesus. Whoa. That was weird.
we might need a second.
We're going to head into the fun half of the program, folks. Jesus. Custodial artist says, say the word, we can do a holy DDoS attack and exercise the spirit of Feldman. Please release his ghost from the shell. Hey. Somebody just said wiggle because my camera keeps freezing. I gotta download that thing.
Dang.
Yeah. All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half and try and figure out what the hell is going on. You can support this show by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Oh, and I wanted to mention this. Friend of show. Actually, a friend of a friend of show. Well, actually, a friend of somebody who works on the show. Mike Cortese. He is a resident of Nashville for 22 years. Done volunteer work with the Nashville Rescue Mission and the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee, St. Jude's Hospital, several other places down there. During the time he spent in the city, he was first involved in management in the music industry, transitioned to working as a performing arts professor. He's had great experience all across the board in Nashville. He is running for Nashville Metro Council. That's the body that reinstated Justin Jones to the Tennessee House. And you can support him and find out more of his policies. I mean, he's some of his issues: keep Nashville affordable, have responsible growth, public safety, resident engagement, mental health, education. You can check him out at Mike4Nashville.com. Mike4Nashville.com. Go there, see if you like what you see. Support that guy running in Nashville City Council. We'll put a link in the podcast and YouTube description. Again, you could support this program by becoming a member. JoinTheMajorityReport.com. Also, don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code MAJORITY. Get 10% off. Emma, ESVN on Monday.
Yeah.
Things have changed. Things have changed.
The death knell for the Celtics may have been premature. We shall see. Not so much so for the Lakers. We spoke about
Or maybe
that.
not just premature, completely mistaken.
Okay. We shall see. We spoke about them and the Lakers, Jimmy Butler and Matthew Tkachuk being absolute monsters in their respective playoff series, and the Arizona Coyotes losing their voting, essentially, ballot initiative, and yet the NHL still trying to push keeping hockey in the desert. YouTube.com/ESPN show. You can check out the full episode or on the podcast as well.
Matt.
This weekend, for Left Reckoning patrons, we will be having Emma Vigland on to discuss how she loves crime on the subway and thinks that everyone's commute should be a little bit more dangerous, and why she might get certain attention. Like, I like hearing my voice on the Daily Wire, but it's very clear that they clipped my bits out and just wanted to respond
It was
to Emma.
an interesting choice.
And so we discussed that. So patreon.com/leftreckoning to hear me, David, and Emma discuss that stuff.
All right. We may take phone calls. If we do, I will call out the phone, 646-257-3920. I'm not sure how much time we'll have. But you can IM the show on the app, majorityapp.com. Head over there, become a member, and you can IM the program. The app is free for everybody, though, and has a lot of use cases for this show, majorityapp.com. See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude.
Dude.
You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're not paying.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking